What's up, guys? And so I just got watching Blue Beetle. This is the new DC film starring Xolo Mariduena as Jamie Reyes, aka the Blue Beetle, and it's like the first film under James Gunn. And I gotta say that this was a really good DC film, and even like this was like a coming of age story, and it was I actually enjoyed the film for what it was, and like it was I just loved everything that it enjoyed, and so much more as well, and so this will be my official review and reaction for Blue Beetle. Give you guys my honest thoughts and opinions, especially for what I liked and what I didn't like about the movie, and even for what the future and what it holds, especially for this character and so much more as well. And so if you're new here, like this, and be sure to subscribe and click the bell so it's all on videos of this. So let's get into it. And now, going in this film, like this, like the first character introduced in James Gunn's DCU, and like even ever since that announcement of James Gunn's DC slate, and like especially for the new characters that they want to introduce, and this with with Blue Beetle being the first character, and even after seeing like the first set photo of Xolo and as a Blue Beetle suit, and by the time I'll get down to the actual marketing, and even with the Blue Beetle suit itself, it definitely has those Iron Man vibes. And now even going in the film, and like even after seeing it, I kind of felt like this is like one of those like normal average superhero movies, but I felt like this was like a very different from what we saw. Especially I think it was like better than the Flash, but and like even though with that movie I supposed to reset everything, but even with this film it has a totally a fresh take, especially on superhero movies, and even with like the Blue Beetle suit, which I definitely loved, it kind of felt very different. And so, with the basic premise of this film, that we follow Jamie Reyes, who was first at college, who was a graduate and going to look up for a job, who was suddenly in possession of a scarab, who was hidden into him by Jenny, played by Mariduena, like Reyes, who is like now turning into the Blue Beetle, and even with the villain of the film, played by Susan Sarandon, who is after him, and even with the scarab and with its powers as well. And now even with the basic vibe that I got for this film, especially like after watching it, I kind of felt like this was like it got like coming of age vibes, and even with the Reyes family, it definitely delivered all that heart humor, and especially with George Lopez, who definitely steals the show for me. And I mean, every time that he's on screen in this film, he definitely gave the like a very much awesome comedy, and even from the Reyes family, and even with the Latino representation that is definitely a very cool here. It's representing all things of that culture, and even with the fans of the comics, and even with like the Latinos, I think this film is definitely represented well, especially for that culture. And now I wanted to talk about Xolo Mariduena in this film, because we all know him as Miguel from Cobra Kai, and like even ever since we saw him in the marketing, and like he's gonna make a superhero debut in DC universe, especially as like a superhero, and I just love everything that he delivered, and he's like definitely like a young teen, and it's definitely like is like young vibes, and even so with like Justin to life, and even dealing with the family, especially with the sister, which I found like she gave a great performance. But even with his performance alone, I felt like he really brought his best, and this was like a definite blast for the way that like Xolo like brought to the character of Jamie Reyes. I just love everything about his character, and like it felt really fun. And on top of that, with the action that with Xolo and what it brought to Jamie Reyes, and like even with the action stuff, I kind of like I got like a Cobra Kai vibes, just from watching him fight some bad guys, and that's like even so, like I mean I just love the suit. It has some Iron Man vibes, and has a totally different take on the DCU, and that's what everything about it. I just really enjoy the heck out of it. And now even with the action and just the overall vibes that I got from this film, it was definitely a great action like where you used to see in the DC universe, especially in like other superhero movies. But I feel like this is like a completely different from what we're used to seeing, especially with his family trying to help him out, especially with the scarab. And so even from like start to finish, I was definitely very hooked. Especially, I think it had like some sort of like a weak villain, but even so, I just definitely enjoy everything that this movie brought, especially from the action. But even though with this film was supposed to go to streaming, and this definitely felt like it had like some sort of streaming quality, but even so, I think that this is like a made for the screen, and even though this was like the first established character in James Gunn's DCU, I think that the future is bright for this character. But even so, with the action, it was great and enjoyable. It was great, enjoyable action. And now even with the family that is in from the Reyes, I just really enjoyed like how much interaction like this was with the characters, especially with Jamie's sister, who I really enjoyed on screen, and especially with George Lopez, who really sold the show. Even with the rest of the family, including for his parents, and just for what this family is going through, which I definitely had a good time with, and just like even so, I just like love this family, especially with the whole heartfelt, and especially with the humor that is coming out from this family, and even towards like at the end of the film, it definitely sets you in like emotions, especially for this family, and even as it leans towards the third act of this film, I kind of feel like it definitely delivers all that. And now I want to talk about the Blue Beetle suit itself, because ever since that we saw like in the trailers, and like even so throughout the marketing of the film, this suit like kind of felt like different, even though it had like Iron Man vibes, and like even so I just really enjoyed the suit. I thought it had like great powers, especially as it comes like from like a scarab, and just like, even so like this suit has some major vibes that I really enjoyed seeing on screen. It definitely delivered some like great like hand-to-hand combat, and even with Jamie Reyes, who's in possession of that scarab, even with the suit, and even for Xolo like delivers to his first superhero role, and with his debut, I mean the suit really delivers something special. And now even with the villain and this film played by Susan Sarandon, and I feel like this was like sort of like a villain that I was not like a fan of, but even though what was established in the beginning of the film, and it's especially like of how it plays out into the third act and towards the end of the film, it kind of felt weak as well. But at the same time, this was like a good villain with her crew, and that's with everything. With her villainy, and it kind of felt like a sort of good, but at the same time, it was pretty mid and pretty not so good as well. Like just like the film in general, it wasn't like the best or like the greatest DC film by any means, but it was a good decent average DC film, and it's what we used to see multiple times. But even with Blue Beetle and the way that this is like established in James Gunn's DCU, this like the first film inside of his universe right now, especially with this being the first character introduced, and this character has like a bright future, especially after this movie, and just even so, I cannot wait to see for what this superhero has next, and if he's gonna team up with like many people, or like do like a future team up project, or have this character show up in like random projects as well. But this is like just the beginning of James Gunn's DCU. But even with the film, I found it to be really good. I mean, I was really entertained. It was somewhat enjoyable. But even though with the film, I definitely had like some flaws, but this was like an enjoyable film. But even with Blue Beetle and the powers it represents, and even with this a bad guy that like Blue Beetle has to take down, but even so, this was a good film. and even with the two post-credit scenes, even with one WT's feature stuff, but like even though in those two post-credit scenes that the WT's for what's to come, but I just like enjoy the film like either way. But this was a pretty good movie, and this character's future is really bright. And yeah, with my final thoughts on Blue Beetle, like this is like the first character in James Gunn's DCU, and this was a great introduction of this character into the DC world, and even with the film in general, it was really good. It was definitely entertaining from start to finish. Even with the humor and the heartfelt emotions from this family, it definitely gets you in emotions, especially with the third act and the way that it plays inside, especially with this family that you get to interact with. Especially, I love the show Mariduena in this role. I thought like he did a perfect in his superhero debut as Jamie Reyes, aka the Blue Beetle, and this character's future is really bright right now. And like even so, I just love the suit and everything that this movie delivered. And this was like a great DC film, and it was just overly solid, but it was like a really good as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed the film, and I can't wait to see what's the story for this character next as well. And so that is gonna be it for this video. Let me know guys' thoughts in the comments below, and what are your thoughts on Blue Beetle. If you've seen the film, give me a rating to 1 out of 10. Give this video a like and subscribe and to turn on notifications about future videos, and also follow my socials which are linked down below. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.